On Halloween morning 2017, as the world awoke to festivities and jack-o'-lanterns, the police discovered what could only be described as a real-life house of horrors, a scene straight out of a nightmare belonging to the notorious Japanese serial killer Takahiro Shiraishi. 9 dismembered bodies were stacked up in boxes with more than 240 bones concealed in coolers and toolboxes, sprinkled with cat litter in order to hide the evidence. How did the person who was once so silent become a serial killer? Takahiro Shiraishi was born in Zama, Japan on October 9, 1990. He grew up in Zama along with his parents and younger sister. People who lived in the neighborhood remembered the young Shiraishi as a quiet child who was able to socialize with neighbors. At school, his grades were far from stellar, but he was an attentive pupil who didn't especially stand out, but was not a gloomy character either. One person claiming to be a former schoolmate took to Twitter saying he was so normal, inconspicuous, and low profile that most classmates would not even recognize him when news of his alleged crimes broke. But the warning signs were perhaps already there, as one elementary school contemporary told the private Fuji TV network that Shiraishi and his friends enjoyed choking each other for fun. Although as lurid as that sounds, it wasn't until years later that things really started to go down. After graduating from high school in 2009, Shiraishi began to work as a scout for sex parlors in Kabukicho, Tokyo's biggest red light district, seeking to lure young women into working in the clubs there. His forceful recruitment practices earned him the title of a creepy person whose image spread virally on the internet, the post informing others that he was someone in the area to avoid. In February 2011, he was arrested and eventually handed a suspended jail sentence for recruiting a young woman for a sex shop in the full knowledge that she would be forced into prostitution. Craving love, but jobless and unwilling to put in the hard work, he cocooned himself in social media, where he got deeply involved in the dark side of it. In June 2017, he confessed to his father he suffered from depression and would urgently like to have his own space. Shiraishi was close to his father and frequently helped him out at work. Eventually, his father decided to help Shiraishi out and acted as guarantor. On August 22, 2017, Shiraishi moved into the 140 square feet apartment which Japanese media would later go on to describe as the House of Horrors. Shiraishi, by this time, had already created 2 accounts on Twitter with a small followers base. The 2 accounts were I Want to Die and Hanged Man. Under the first account, he projected himself as a disconsolate victim seeking a company for his misery. Under the second account, he projected himself as a person proficient at helping people die. I want to spread my knowledge in hanging. I really want to become the source of strength for everyone who is in pain. If you are at a dead end, please consult me, he tweeted. His plan worked, and he found a woman whom he convinced to start a relationship with him. But the veneer of a happy life soon faded, and jealousy reared its ugly head when she grew close to a male friend. He knocked her unconscious and, filled with uncontrollable lust, raped her. But it came to his mind that she would report the sexual assault if she went home alive, and he would then be thrown into jail. Ultimately, he decided it would be best if he killed her. Surprised he didn't get caught for his actions, he went on to search for new victims using the hashtag suicide recruitment on Twitter, preying on young girls who wanted to take their own lives. He told them via direct messaging on Twitter, "Let's die together." He said he gave them alcohol, tranquilizers, and sleeping pills to make them relax before assaulting them. Preferring to kill by strangulation, Shiraishi fostered his long-time obsession with choking, suicide, and death. While Shiraishi had mainly used 2 social media accounts, I Want to Die and Hangman, these were among 6 handles that he used to interact with 37 different accounts over 3 months. Altogether, he met 13 people, killing 9 of them in a time span of only 3 months. It would soon become apparent that his 9th victim ironically ended him. This victim had just lost her mother when she began talking to Shiraishi online. She posted that she was looking for someone who wanted to die with her. The victim's brother, fearing the worst when she went missing, hacked into his sister's Twitter account where he discovered the conversations between the 2 individuals. Using the help of another woman who claimed to almost fall into Shiraishi's trap herself, they hatched a plan with the police to catch him. The woman agreed to be the bait to lure Shiraishi out for the police, who then followed him home on October 30th. When the police showed up at the apartment, they asked him where the missing 23-year-old woman was. "In there," Shiraishi said, pointing to one of his many containers abundant with human remains. In his apartment, the police discovered 9 deceased bodies, all of which had been dismembered. His victims' heads, legs, and limbs were divided among 3 cooler boxes and 5 huge storage crates. Shortly after being taken into custody, Shiraishi confessed to killing 1 person in August, 4 in September, and 4 in October, mostly on the same day he met them. 8 of the 9 victims were women, mainly in their late teens to early 20s. Shiraishi killed his only male victim after he confronted Shiraishi about the whereabouts of his girlfriend, who happened to be Shiraishi's first victim. Shiraishi told police he initially found it difficult to get rid of a body. In fact, it took him 3 days to get rid of the first body. After that, he dealt with the bodies within 1 day. He said his motives had been sex and money. He is alleged to have choked his victims, whose real names and ages he did not know, until they passed out, before sexually assaulting some of them. Shiraishi even confessed to slicing up the bodies in his bathroom in an attempt to destroy the evidence of his gruesome deeds. He told the police he disposed of his victims' flesh and internal organs like garbage, but kept their bones out of fear he would get caught. Police eventually recovered 2 kitchen knives, scissors, a saw, binding rope, and a gimlet, all with traces of blood on them. His neighbors in the 2-story, 12-unit apartment block said they had neither seen nor heard anything amiss, despite complaints of a persistent pungent smell emanating from his apartment. One of them pointed out that it was strange that his bathroom ventilation fan was kept on at all times. Shiraishi even brazenly used the neighborhood garbage collection point to dispose of the evidence. A neighbor has noted, in hindsight, his frequent trips to the chute. During his trial in 2020, Shiraishi's lawyers argued his charges should be changed to the lesser offense of homicide with consent. They said his victims apparently gave consent to be killed, according to the messages that were sent. Shiraishi denied this himself and confirmed that none of the victims eventually wanted to get killed, although he had promised them a guaranteed way to die or that he would join them in mutual suicide. Shiraishi bruised the back of their heads deliberately so they could not resist. Ultimately, it is apparent that Shiraishi never actually had suicidal thoughts of his own. He simply chose people he deemed easy to prey on financially and sexually. But when they wanted to talk about their feelings rather than die, Shiraishi ended their lives for them. When asked about what he did, Shiraishi said, "It was a very comfortable and pleasurable life. I failed because I was caught. I have no other feelings." On December 15th, 2020, Shiraishi was found guilty and sentenced to death. After the verdict, his defense team launched an appeal for the ruling, despite the murderer himself being against the idea. Eventually, Shiraishi's death sentence was executed in January 2021. In response to the crimes, Japan expanded its suicide support lines to help their struggling citizens, with the rates increasing exponentially due to the global pandemic. Japan is often portrayed as a pressure cooker, isolationist society with high suicide rates, and suicide remains the top cause of death for those aged 39 and below. Following the case, Twitter introduced warnings and links to support groups and charities anytime words related to suicide or self-harm are searched in Japan. With every shocking case like Shiraishi's comes calls for tighter regulations and more scrutiny over social media and the dark web, though there are limits to what can be done.